All right, thank you again, Madam Chair. And my dear friends on HDO, I apologize for making you wait one moment. I was just finishing up another disability bill and appropriations, so thank you for your patience, and I'm out of breath. So, for the record, Delegate Michelle Guyton, District 42B in Baltimore County, and I am here to ask you and thank you for your consideration of House Bill 1244 to establish the Maryland Developmental Disabilities Administration Waiver Advisory Council in state law. I can't say it 3 times fast, but hopefully you all can see it written down. The council already exists, all right? So this is something very important, and I know that Madam Chair understands why we're doing it this way. I cannot thank Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, whom I don't see at the moment, and especially Delegate Bagnall for really spending a great deal of time trying to address some of the issues facing our citizens with developmental disabilities and helping me work out a way so that this bill could come in, be effective, and not cost any money. So this is a very good combination. Right? So the council already exists as a requirement, as a federal requirement for Medicaid. So the Developmental Disability Administration has started the meetings. I believe they've had 2 at this point. And what we have decided to do is to establish the council not just in the department informally, but in Maryland law. Right? And by doing so, we can empower our state to influence not only the membership, which this bill does to some extent, but also address the unique concerns that all of you have heard, if you've been sitting in this committee, from the members of our disability community over the past year. Right? So I wanted to share just a moment with you, a few little items, because I know that you're probably all going to read every line of every piece of mail that you get, but just in case you don't get through the entire file, I wanted to highlight just a few things that some of our constituents have written in support of this bill and why we need to address the problem. So recent changes to policies published in November 2024 without public input and with no warning has created chaos and confusion for participants. I would say that's fairly accurate. Over the last year, Maryland Department has grown Maryland Down Syndrome Association has grown increasingly troubled by the DDA's lack of meaningful stakeholder engagement with participants. Right? They also say that the way that things have been handled and the tenor of the communication from DDA this year have been confrontational, accusatory, and disrespectful of individuals with developmental disabilities who are entitled to services. Right? And then finally, collaborative problem solving is sorely needed to ensure the strength, stability, and sustainability of the Medicaid waiver programs. There are a whole lot of other lines of support in your folder, and I hope you will take a look at them. But certainly, this is more important than ever because it is possible, we all know anything is possible in this federal landscape, that there might be a potential loss of funding and guidance from our federal administration when it comes to Medicaid, right? And so because of that, putting this advisory council into state law so that we can impact the direction that it takes is more important than ever. So a few changes to the council that is already in existence that we put into this bill are the addition of several members, and I'm sure you have the bill in front of you, and enforceable guidance to the council that expands their work to include collaboration, communication, feedback to both their constituency and to us in the General Assembly, which is something that did not exist before. So I hope that you please consider a favorable report on House Bill 1244 to support the disabilities community and the DDA in their efforts to work together, to better work together to improve the system in Maryland to support of all of our constituents. I do have one amendment that is a sponsor amendment that is truly technical. It changes a word so that it is clear that we're not asking for people who are working for the ARC or MAX to be on the council, but actually a representative from those groups. And then there are a couple of other amendments that will come before you, one of which is very interesting. It is not my amendment, but I hope maybe there can possibly be some conversation about it that puts a little more teeth into this piece of legislation, and I would certainly be in favor of that if it's possible. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Who you like to go next?
Okay, I guess I'm starting. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Rachel London, the Executive Director of the Maryland Developmental Disabilities Council and the Chair of the Maryland Developmental Disabilities Coalition. You have our written testimony, and both organizations are supporting with the sponsors' amendments that she just spoke about. Thank you so much. I'm also a member of the Waiver Advisory Council, and we have met 3 times. It is in existence, but House Bill 1244 is important, as Delegate Guyton just mentioned, because not only does it put it in statute, but it adds key stakeholders and provides a bit more structure and requirements for the advisory council. I want to highlight 2 critical parts, the advisory council and the legislation. First, I'm going to stress the fact that the purpose of the advisory council is to make recommendations about the waivers, the DDA Medicaid waivers, and service delivery, which happens in 2 models. It happens in self-directed services, and it happens through the community provider model. Over 18,000 people with developmental disabilities receive services in both models, about 15,000 people from community providers, and almost 4,000 who self-direct their services. And this committee will continue, and with a little bit more purpose and recommendations is to look at both of those models through the waiver. Second, when the advisory council is fully has all of its members, it is a majority of people with lived experience, and that is critical. We strongly support that. In fact, my council is also a majority of people with lived experience. The sponsors' amendments do keep that membership aligned with having a majority of people with lived experiences. Madam Chair, for all of those reasons, we are in strong support with the sponsors' amendments. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nice to see you, Rachel.
Nice to see you.
Who's next?
Can we go? Good afternoon, Madam Chair Pena-Melnick and members of the committee. My name is Andy Kalp, and I'm the Executive Director of the ARC Maryland, and I'm here in support of House Bill 1244 as amended by the sponsor. For those of you who don't know, the ARC is a statewide advocacy organization that's dedicated to protecting and advancing the rights of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and supporting their families. We advocate for the viability of all with a lens on quality, efficiency, informed choice, modernization, and sustainability. And we've been heavily committed to doing this work since the 1950s when we were started. And in fact, the ARC has been behind many important pieces of legislation, civil rights legislation that have passed not only on a state level, but also on a federal level, such as the IDEA and the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we've been around a long time and have helped get these things in place for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I want to speak for a second to the amendments that have been proposed. If you look at the bill, it was page 3 or 4, the ARC and Max were listed in the wrong section. So what the amendment does is move us up to the specifically named advocacy organization area of the bill because it says providers, licensed and certified providers of the ARC Maryland. The ARC Maryland isn't a licensed and certified provider. We are a statewide advocacy organization, so that's where our membership would fall. And in the fiscal note on the back page, it inaccurately says that people would have to lose their seats on the council if that ARC is added. But because we're not a licensed or certified provider, we won't be upsetting anyone else off the council by our inclusion on this council. So for all those reasons, I respectfully ask for a favorable report on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony today. We appreciate it. Who would like to go next?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Laura Hallam, the CEO of MACS, the Maryland Association of Community Services. We are a statewide nonprofit association of 125 community providers across the state of Maryland, and we're here in support of House Bill 1244. We greatly appreciate the sponsors' work to codify this important group that ensures well-rounded stakeholder representation to advise DDA on the many aspects of policy that relate to the 3 DDA waivers. We also greatly appreciate the sponsors' clarifying amendment to include MACS and the ARC Maryland on the council. The vast majority of DD services offered by community providers are provided by MACS members. So by including us, it ensures a broad provider perspective that cuts across all regions of the state, all sizes of providers, and all waiver services. And I just want to thank you, Madam Chair, and the members of the committee for your long-standing support for Marylanders with developmental disabilities and community providers. And with that, we urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next?
Hi, my name is Alicia Wopat. I'm with the Self-Directed Advocacy Network of Maryland. We're a group of people who advocate for those who self-direct their DDA services, and we're delighted to be here today in support of the sponsors Bill 1244. We wholeheartedly support this because we feel it's the codification, is that a word? Codification is really important, and the fact that it includes a much broader range of advocates and people with lived experiences is a change for the better, as well as the very high level of consensus building that this bill requires. So for those reasons, we feel it's a significant improvement and look for your favorable report. Thank you.
And thank you for being here. Thank you for all the work that you all do. It is, I know it's a tough job, okay? I hope that you feel the support from the committee. All right?
Absolutely.
I'm
Thank
going to
you.
open it up for questions now. I don't see any. That doesn't mean we don't care. It just means that you worked hard on drafting the bill with us ahead of time, which really makes a difference. It is now going to be assigned to a subcommittee, and I welcome you to come, and we'll get it done.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you,
My pleasure.
committee.
Next, we have Adam Wyndham, Ann Beerborn, Kirill Resnick, Shari Dexter, and Alaris Vidal de Palacios. And I do have, just for the record, a letter from Katie Yatabi. Are you here? I know you did not get to sign up on time. I think you're here, right? It's Katrina Yatabi. Yes, I have your letter, okay?
I think I'd just like the written testimony.
Yes, I have it.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Go ahead. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Nice to see you, Delegate Resnick.
Nice to be seen. Good to see everyone here.
Yeah. There's a saying that says in Spanish, dichoso los ojos que te ven. Lucky or blessed the eyes to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
Long time.
You're doing all right. Go ahead. You can get started.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, members of HGO. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on HB 1053. I'm here favorable with amendment. My name is Kirill Resnick, and I am here on behalf of the Concerned Citizens of Self-Direction, a participant and family advocacy group supporting self-direction for Marylanders with intellectual and developmental disabilities. This legislation is absolutely necessary, and the members of CCDS want to see the establishment of the DDA Waiver Advisory Council set in code. The participants, parents, family members, and providers of DDA services, especially those in the self-direction program, want to have a voice in the process of decision-making as a partner to Maryland State Government, the Department of Health, and the Developmental Disabilities Administration. So for those reasons, we ask the bill to pass and the advisory committee to be established. We have, however, proposed an amendment which is included in my submitted materials and which Delegate Guyton had referenced. This amendment would give the council the ability to review and approve any proposed amendment requests for the 3 Medicaid waivers most relevant to the intellectual and developmental disabilities community. With this change, participants who are affected by the IDD waivers will have a real voice in how the policy is determined. I will now turn it over to Ann Vleerborn, a member of the CCDS Steering Committee and a parent of a self-direction participant, and I ask the committee for a favorable vote with amendment. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. You can get started.
Hi, my name is Ann Valerbone. As Krill said, I'm the parent of a 34-year-old son, Michael, who has autism and is developmentally delayed. Michael has successfully participated in self-directed services for the last 13 years. When Michael started with the waiver, by law, it did and does give employment and budget authority to the participant. The Community Pathways Waiver is required to do this to be in compliance with CMS rules. We created a team from Michael, a service coordinator, a support broker, vendors, employees, and my recently deceased husband and myself. We all had the goal of creating a meaningful, safe plan for Michael to thrive in his community. And we did just that. Michael has had vendors and staff that have worked for him for most of that time. Prior to January of 2024, there were periodic issues with DDA, but we were able to communicate and resolve the matters that arose. However, since that time, there has been little to no communication when problems are found. Calls are not returned, emails go unanswered, and denials of services and budget authority are not communicated in writing, meaning we cannot file appeals. These problems began prior to the October 2024 self-directed service manual. However, they are so much worse now. We have been preparing for this meeting for several days. I'm a part of the group, Concerned Citizens for Self-Directed Services Maryland, only to randomly discover a new version of the manual was published on Friday, February 28th, that went into effect Saturday, March 1st. This manual is 120 pages. By published, I mean that it was posted on DDA's website. Not one participant, provider, service coordinator, support broker, or vendor was notified directly of the changes that precisely affect the participants. The Deputy Secretary spoke at the House Appropriations Committee on that Friday afternoon. It would have been an ideal forum for the announcement that DDA had heard our voices and were considering our opinions. It was, however, a perfect example of the continued lack of team input and DDA's lack of communication with the very people we are counting on to care for our loved ones. Suddenly losing my husband, Michael's father, has made me acutely aware of the fact that I will not always be here to fight for my son's civil rights. And what will become of him if the government that signed a contract with him to provide his level of necessary care changes their minds and to balance a budget? We need to be a meaningful part of the advisory council that is being proposed today. This council is a CMS requirement. Our ask is that these members be appointed by Governor Moore and not the Secretary of Health. We need the flexibility of true budget and employer authority because, like in my situation, Michael needs to pay an enhanced rate due to his size, strength, and behaviors. Each participant relies on individually determined levels of care and differing services. DDA has signed contracts with our participants that acknowledge those needs and levels of services. Please help us have a seat at the table. We welcome any questions at any time. Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your personal story, and so sorry to hear about your husband's passing.
Thank you.
Okay, next, please.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Sherry Dexter, and I am also with Kirill and with Ann with Concerned Citizens of Self-Direction for Maryland. Wanted to just say, I'm going to make this really easy on you, that I concur with my colleagues here, so we'll make it short and sweet. But I also really wanted to thank Delegate Guyton because it does sound like she is open to the amendment that we are proposing. As Ann noted, we have been through so much in such a short amount that truly families are, all of these changes are wreaking havoc, and they're happening almost daily, it feels like. Please help us. Please help us have a strong voice and one that we can be sure of what is happening in the future. So we appreciate your support, and we hope that everybody is open to the amendment that we are proposing, and we appreciate your support.
And thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Adam?
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Adam Wyndham, and I'm here today as a parent, advocate, and caregiver for my daughter with disabilities. I'm urging you to support HB 1244, which would establish a Developmental Disabilities Administration and Waiver Advisory Council that is objective, transparent, and truly representative of those impacted by DDA policies. Families, self-advocates, and stakeholders, I am urging you to support HB 1244 and would like to offer a friendly amendment which would establish the council. Families, self-advocates, and stakeholders deserve a council that serves their interests. One of the major concerns with DDA's previous council was the significant exclusion of family members from the decision-making. Out of 33 seats, only 4 were selected to be family members. DDA removed family members from the definition of lived experience, despite federal precedent recognizing that family members are a critical part of the disability community. All other definitions I've seen amongst federal agencies and national advocacy organizations include family members in the definition of those with lived experience. For example, in the DDA recruitment email for this council, it stated, "We especially encourage individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities to apply. The Waiver Advisory Council will be composed primarily of members with lived experiences, including current and former participants in DDA-operated Medicaid waiver programs." Then in the application itself, it further defined, "This council will include a majority of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities with lived experiences," and in parentheses, defined current and past DDA participants and self-advocates. By removing family members from the definition, DDA is effectively excluding many of the people who advocate daily, navigate the bureaucracy, and provide direct care for individuals with severe disabilities. Families are a vital part of the waiver system, and their voices must be included. To ensure true representation, I would like to offer a friendly amendment be made to HB 1244 to formally define lived experience to include family members of individuals with disabilities. This will prevent future exclusion of family members and ensure the policy decisions reflect realities faced by the entire disability community. Thank you.
Thank you, and nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony on the other bill. You saw that it went through.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Wonderful. Next, please. How are you?
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Good afternoon. Madam Chair, always good to see you.
Thank you.
My name is Alaris Vidal de Palacios, and this is our formal request for inclusion on the advisory board for HB 1244. The Maryland Council of Support Brokers formally requests to be considered for a seat on the board currently formed underneath of this bill. As the only professional firm with active representation and engagement in the state's support broker community, we believe our participation is essential to ensuring balanced and informed advocacy for self-directed services in Maryland. The Maryland Council of Support Brokers, a professional organization representing the interests of support brokers, families, and stakeholders in the state's waiver option for self-directed program alike, has been in existence since 2022, with over 400 certified support brokers representing the state's over 4,000 participants. Support brokers are certified by the Developmental Disability Administration. The Maryland Council of Support Brokers has consistently worked to uphold the standards and integrity of support broker services. Our organization has provided critical support through providing referral services for families seeking assistance from support brokers, hosting monthly meetings and training sessions for support brokers statewide, providing advocacy and support for approved and new families who have questions about waiver services, watchdown services for regulations which shift and change the mannerisms and how services are delivered. Collaboration with other recognized community organizations include ESTAN, Maryland Task Force, Montgomery Transitional Work Groups, etc. We also, when there was a larger issue in 2023 with payments from the FMCSs that had been brought into the state, we advocated and were able to secure millions of dollars, participate in the securement of millions of dollars. In light of our established presence and expertise in the self-directed services community, we respectfully request that the Maryland Council of Support Brokers be granted a seat on the board. Excluding our organization from this critical initiative would diminish the inclusivity and representational balance necessary for meaningful decision-making. Failing to include the Maryland Council of Support Brokers would eliminate representation of over 400 support brokers and more than 4,000 families who participate in self-directed services. These families rely on support brokers as their personally selected advocates, whereas other representatives, such as CCSs, are assigned and act as agents of the administration. Support brokers have an intimate understanding of the internal processes that the self-directed families navigate daily. Ignoring this group denies the voices of those most directly affected by these recent service changes and undermines the integrity of the advocacy process. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I'm going to open it up for questions now for this panel. Are there any questions? All right, thank you so much. Good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And this actually concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1244.